horsepower on location at the Engine Performance Expo. We are delving into the world of the rockstar engine builders and certainly learning some of the best tools and tips of the trade. Lake Speed, myself, and we are joined by Dennis Borem from PME Engines. Dennis just got me up to speed a little bit. I'm super excited because you kind of walk in multiple worlds. Of course, the round track world of NASCAR, delving into the world of drag racing. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Well, this is one of my favorite segments. I've been waiting for 2 days for this one because we're going to spill the beans finally on some numbers, right? So I believe they have a video queued up. I don't know have they shown the video yet? Can we nod the crew? Let me know. Have we shown the video yet of the dyno run? No. All right. Go ahead and get the video queued up while I'm preparing the setup here. So back in the summer, me and Mitchell showed up with one of my dad's old Ford C3 engines. Mm-hmm. And Dennis was nice enough because back in the day, PME, they built engines for my dad at the end of his career. Mm-hmm. So we went back to where we started from, right? We put this old Ford C3 engine on the dyno, and it was underwhelming, to say the best, right?
Yes, it was a disappointment.
Right.
It was a disappointment.
Yes.
Now, had you dynoed the engine originally, like when it was first?
No. Okay. It was one that Lake had acquired. I think
Dad had bought some engines that used Bush engines at an auction. Bob Cronin, a good friend of his, had freshened them up so he could go vintage road racing. And so Dad had an idea they should make about 700 or 7 horsepower, and then we put them on the dyno, and we made like 477.
Less than 500, yeah.
Yeah, less than 500. Like, so we were like more than 200 horsepower off of where we. Oh, it was. Now the challenge is then it's going to be easy to make a lot more power. But we tore the engine apart. Man, we couldn't really see much of anything wrong with it.
Yeah, the only things were it was lower compression.
Yep.
There was a few things there. It had been built as at the time Bush or Xfinity engine, so small ports, intake small. But the dyno didn't really tell us there was something going wrong, and the teardown didn't tell us there was anything big that was wrong, other than those things right there. Yeah. So that was still a bit of a mystery at that point.
Yeah, what's this giant delta between what the dyno sheet said in 2002 versus what we're seeing in 2022? Right. We're like, okay, where are we going to find a couple hundred horsepower to get back where we were or should have been? And so we went to work, right? And you guys did a great job. We got Greg Anderson. We honed the block. We worked with the guys at CP and Carrillo. They checked the old rods out. And then we made new pistons. We did new rings. We did the gas-ported piston with gas-ported rings. We did 0.7 millimeter, 2 millimeter ring package. So we went from a 043 1.5 3 millimeter package to a 0.7 0.72. Went from just lateral gas ports in the piston to lateral gas ports in the ring and the piston. Then we got Billy and the guys to do the camshaft, where the guys at Comp really stepped up and got us a new valve train. John Callie's with Morel got us the nice Black Mamba lifter, so it has a keyed.
Yeah, and then we machined the block, put the keyed bushings in, and just basically the foundation of it, we kept the crank and rods that were in it. Obviously, we talked
same
about.
Block, same crank, same rods.
So the heads at that point, it's like, okay, we rework the heads. Intake valves bigger.
Yep.
It was very conservative before.
Went to a 1.8 rocker.
Right.
Which people have run higher ratios than that in NASCAR, so it wasn't. We didn't kill it. We didn't go crazy. Like you said, we used really conservative stuff, like new old stock parts and a lot of things that weren't just incredibly expensive or unobtainium. Just use normal, tried and true stuff that was pretty easy to get. Like a kind of a project rebuild where you kept a lot of good stuff.
Sure.
You kept the old oil pump, same old pan.
Yep.
We definitely left power on the table there. Right? There's things we knew that you could have made a lot better if you did better heads. You did awesome. Well, yeah, you could do anything you wanted to.
Kind of like a house remodel. How far are you going to go, right?
Right. So extreme home makeover, right?
Yep.
Type deal.
Yep.
So we did all that. They killed themselves this past weekend to get it together. You want to tell them a little bit of the story about the valve springs and everything?
Oh yeah. Well, that was to me, that's a normal day in the engine builder's world that nobody sees.
Right.
Matter of fact, Joe Nemechek was at the shop the other night, and I was doing some work on it. He goes, people don't know how much time it takes to do this stuff. I said, nope, it's a passion, and the assembly part's simple. It's the preparation. Well, one thing that we didn't really look at close enough was the fact that when we got the cylinder heads together, we knew the valve to piston, or our coil bind was close. Mm-hmm. So we got the engine together, we checked coil bind. Coil bind was really close. So we had to do some work with spring seats. You know, we needed a longer valve. Yeah. That wasn't going to happen.
Right.
So we spent a good bit of time there to get that project going. So, yeah. But it did. It all worked out as far as assembly goes.
So we got it all together. We finally got it on the dyno on Tuesday.
Yep.
And Dad came.
Yep.
Come hang out and watch.
Really cool.
That was neat to see. He enjoyed watching it. So I guess what we need to do now is we need to stop talking about this engine, right? We need to actually show the dyno pull. So here, watch the dyno run.
Here we go.
That was easy.
The bar was low, right? I mean,
that
was the helpful thing. We even talked about that when we dynoed it back in June. We tore apart. So, well, this is either going to be the highest mountain we've ever got to climb, or we set the bar really low and we're looking like heroes.
Yeah, we would have been disappointed though if it was 700.
It would have been.
Yeah, or even 720.
Yeah. I wanted way more than that.
So what was the final number?
Well, I guess there was one. So one of the great things about how you really dyno, right, is that you don't just take the best run. In fact, what you need to do is make multiple runs and then average. You throw out the best, throw out the worst, and then average, right? When you throw out the best, it throws out the highest number, right? So Frankie did a great job. I mean, he was like super fast. I mean, you tell you Frankie works his butt off.
Yes, he does.
And he was doing a great job. And we were changing fuel. We changed oil. At the very end, we threw everything out, right? We put in the Mark's 0W16 JGR oil. We put in VPQ16. We tuned it up, jetted it up, did everything we could. And so it was like 760
plus
something when just off the braking oil. But then putting in the race oil and the race gas and really getting after it. There was a 781 run.
Yeah, just over 80.
Yeah.
So it was a good, and I think my goal was if it was plus 750, 755 is what I kind of thought. Well, this is achievable, and it did better than that.
Yeah,
so
it was.
All the people involved, Billy and CP and the whole thing.
Right, the whole everything came together. It was great. And I hardly slept the night before when you sent me. I think he ran it a little bit before, and he sent me like a half a dyno picture. I'm like, oh, you're teasing me terribly.
That's right. I think what I sent you, it was just over 700, maybe 705.
Yeah.
And Frankie looked at it and he goes, well, I'll get another one. I said, no, he's not going to see that.
But we did everything we could to make it right. From getting the hone, we used the right braking oil with the rings and everything we could to get the best possible ring seal, because that was the one thing we could know was kind of bad before. Was the rings were micro welded. We had a whole lot of blow by the first go round, and I think the blow by went from around like 10 or 11 CFM down to, I think it was running like 2.5 or something on that last few runs.
And there's one other thing that you weren't aware of till right now.
Okay.
Oh, here we go.
And
he lied to me.
when I put the pan on, I meant to call you, and I forgot till just now we were talking about it. So, do you remember when that engine come apart?
Yes.
And taking the pan off, what a pain that was.
Yes.
Okay. So, putting it back on, that pan was originally built for piston sprayers.
Okay.
They weren't on it. None of us noticed it. It was an after. It got washed. It got put on the cart. Looked at. The day before that, on Friday, I was getting ready to put assemble the pan and looked at it, make sure it fit. It's like there's fixed piston sprayers in this pan. Early on in probably the mid to late 90s, some of the bigger teams were the development on spraying the bottom of the pistons and cooling it. We had learned that OE'd been doing it for years ago, but some people were later to the game doing it, because if you go back to the 80s, probably nobody.
Yeah.
And then as time went on, well, it had it there, but it wasn't hooked up. And I looked at the block and I was like, maybe it was hooked up. There's a port here. It wasn't. So Taylor welded a fitting on the side of it, and we plumbed the pan. And I forgot to tell you. So the pan is plumbed. It has piston sprayers in it now. Which
it does?
Yes. So
we were spraying the pistons.
So the folks at CP will be happy to hear that.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah.
So
well, I probably wouldn't have had them anodize the ring groove and try to squeeze a little bit more out of it. I had known that. So it's good, right? We were safety. That was knowledge I didn't need to have.
That's right. That's right. There you go.
Because I would have been more risky.
Yep.
On the deal.
But having your dad there was the icing on the cake.
That was great.
Because I remember building motors for him then.
Yeah.
And it was really neat here. And he was emotional. The fact that he heard the motor running, and just I'm sure all of the thoughts of the past and everything else
came flooding back, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the thing was, like, we had offered up, because Mitchell and Logan know the guys who own Rockingham Motor Speedway, and they've just recently repaved it. Mm-hmm. And they said, you guys are welcome to come use the track.
Okay.
Dad's very first time in a cup car, actually any race car with a roof on it, was at Rockingham in 1979. And we were like, oh, this is going to be awesome. We'll let Dad go back to Rockingham and get in the car and relive it and do all that. And he's like, after seeing the engine run, how much power it made, he's like, I don't want to go to Rockingham. That's too small.
Oh, that's too small.
I want to go somewhere where I can go fast. I don't want to go ride in a parking lot. It's like, let's go to VIR, somewhere there's a long straightaway. I want to go fast. And I'm like, okay, Dad, you can go where you want to go.
Yep. So hopefully we get to go to probably VIR.
Sounds like that's where he wants to go. So that's where we're going to go.
That's awesome. Well, this has been a great project just to follow along on the social media, obviously. But the connection, there's been like a little bit of subplot here on this Engine Performance Expo, family and fathers and sons and everything. For you to take this cool project and use it as an informative bit about the advancement of technology, the importance of ring seal really is what it's all about. You can't just sit your engine around. I'm looking at the products that are on the table that help.
They're all part of it.
They're all part of it, but the payoff, like that payoff, Dennis, to watch, Lake, I don't want to say Lake Senior, but Lake, get emotional over the firing of the engine to resurrect something from the past and have it be better than it ever was.
Yeah.
That's got to be just an amazing feeling.
It does. The whole past, that engine, the history of it, for me, was really neat, because back in that day we did so many Fords.
Yeah.
And that was really...
You built a lot each week.
A lot of Fords, yeah.
Because back then there was qualifying engines and practice engines and
and everything else. That's right. And so And I only tuned for your father one time that I went to the track to fill in for another guy.
Okay.
And before the race, it was at Darlington. And the only thing he came up to me before the race and said, the only things, the comments he made, he said, just make sure the parts stay in the motor today. And
I got the rest.
That's right. So,
at Darlington, those were true words right there.
That's right.
Yeah, you give him a piece of your drive at Darlington, he's gonna make it happen.
Very good there.
It was really good. Mm-hmm. Well, the other thing about this whole project I think is kind of neat is that he asked the question, unprompted. He's like, so at the end of my career, 98, what do these things make? Because he wanted to know where does this thing stack up compared to what it was back then.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what is that general number? I mean, you don't have the exact.
Well, there might have been people close to that, but I'm going to say it was in the 50s. You know, there was most of the guys were in the 40s. There might have been somebody's squeaking 70. But it is pretty neat because we had good stuff then. I mean, we didn't change the block.
No,
we didn't change the crank.
No, same rods.
We didn't change the heads.
Nope.
Matter of fact, the guy that tuned those heads up, Jim, at the shop, he's worked in the port room there since 1985. So he ported all those heads then, Ford. So it wasn't like he didn't know what to do then. It does now.
Right.
But we were able to the little things. I really give credit to the piston, and we put a bigger valve in it. But the piston was a huge part of it.
Yeah.
And the camshaft. Those two things. The other things the big gains were there, but.
So took an elite level racing engine of one era, refreshed it with the best of the best of our era, and made 50 horsepower more.
Well.
Yeah,
probably.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean,
that would be exactly it.
Nick Ramey, we got the rocker arms from.
That's right.
He used to work for
that's pretty amazing. So, simply put, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Yes.
So Nick built an engine for Rusty Wallace recently
with new old stock, not the best of what's available now.
And that's what what Nick did is he built that engine for Rusty, and he said that's period correct.
Yeah.
What they would have built at Roush Yates in 1997, 98. So around the same time period as that, he said that engine made 733, and they dynoed it a month ago.
Yeah.
So we're about 50 better than that. And that part of it, like I said, is the piston, going to lighter ring package, all that stuff. And we've seen it at the testing we've done at Shavers. You go from a 16th ring to a 0.7 millimeter ring, it's going to be 20 horsepower. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's there. So you put together better the cam, better rings, all that just adds up. That's how you get the 50. And realistically, we talked about the dyno sheets the other day. That engine on its fourth pull in 2002 made 656. Call it 660. Once it was rich, and we tuned it up, and you got about the 900 CFM airflow, about 300 pounds per hour of fuel flow. It made 690 is what it made. And that's the real number, right? And then we went through all the other stuff that's not real. We talked about the dyno stuff the other day. So to go from 690 to 780, we picked it up 90 from where it was new. I mean, that's huge. And then it was just a very satisfying project overall.
Right. It was.
Yeah. What do the guys in the shop think about that? Because, I mean, you guys work on all kinds of things. And was this like oh, God, this thing's here? Or is this kind of like, oh, this is going to be kind of interesting to see what this is?
No, I think a lot of the guys that were involved in it, it was good. Paul, or a similar there, Paul's been with the company since, I think, 45 years.
Yeah.
And so he did a lot of those engines then also. So for him, it was a trip down memory lane too.
That's cool. I know you had that same experience.
Oh yeah. So it was, and then on last Saturday when we finished the top end, and I mentioned to Joe beforehand, the drag race team that we're doing work with Rick Ware and Clay Milliken, the car chief came over and helped assemble the top end, which is Jesse Snyder. So he was all excited, to be able to. And I thought, wow, I get to work with a top fuel guy. We're going to put the top end of this motor together.
That's awesome.
So
See, it's all cross-pollinating. And so let's take a second to talk a little bit about that. In that your background mostly in NASCAR, and you kind of come up, but now you're getting drafted in or selected to be part of the drag racing community and nitro burning top fuel cars. That's kind of interesting. Rick Ware has come into the sport and is bringing money but also technology and relationships. What are you doing with the Clay team and Clay Milliken's team, and what can we look for?
Yeah, so they we had talked about this last year, Rick did, and then went to the last 5 races of the year with the team, really just watching, wondering how can, he says, I want you to be involved with this. And right away, the first thing that you see is repair work. And the ability's there at ProMotor. We do a lot of repairs for other drag race teams. I'd say that most of our machine work that we do for outside work is for drag racing, whether it be pro stock or top fuel blocks. But as far as the engine part of it at the track, I thought, this is so foreign.
It is absolutely foreign.
It's not me. It's a flying bomb, and got to work around and hang out with Jimmo and the guys there, and you build a relationship, or you start to build a relationship. So I think that going forward in this year, we'll have a presence there and be available to do work if other teams need repair work. That's part of our business model. But to be more involved with what they're doing organizational-wise with the engines, and just keeping track of maintenance and that sort of stuff.
And another set of eyes, and who knows what you come up with, me in there, and they're looking for an advantage, and maybe something strikes you.
Yeah, and to work with, they're all great, and just to work with Clay, he's like, I don't know if there's. I didn't know him before this year. I don't think you could knock the smile off that guy's face.
No, you can't. And one of the good guys out there, Clay Milliken, is, the guy's made of gold. Everybody loves him. He's a wonderful person. And I can assure you there will be repair work.
No,
I can assure you. Like that.
Occupational hazard.
Part of drag racing. It's unfortunate, but when you're stepping on it and you got nitromethane in the tank, there will be repair work available.
Yeah, I think at Pomona, he said he got out of the tow vehicle, and he goes, it's gonna be the right side right behind me in the front cylinder in there. So he goes, you want to know how I know? Because that's where the flames and sparks were coming out. It had blown the gasket in the head right out there.
Yeah. So it's a different style racing.
But like you mentioned, though, that different perspective. Right? I've heard, being around the nitro stuff. We talked to Antron at PRI. Those guys are starting to think about the engine, not just, well, how can we tune it up, but maybe we need to think about building it differently, because they're looking at Pro Stock, they're looking at NASCAR and say, what can we apply from what those guys know to Top Fuel in order to get an advantage? Because, man, when they do get it hooked up, boy, they are all super close.
Yes.
When they get it hooked up. Now, there's always that issue.
Yep.
But when they get hooked up, if you're in the final round and they both have a good light and they both hook it up, you got to outrun the other person to the other end.
Yeah, they work hard.
Well, and they will get it hooked up. Over the course of a national event, you go through this process of qualifying, and the first run down, 2/3 or a third go up in smoke. And by the time we reach first round eliminations on Sunday morning, they're all going down. They have to. They're going down the racetrack, and in that moment, they have enough to get to the stripe first. But it's kind of interesting in that we got to make these things go fast, but you've also got to make them last. It's like one time in the past, it was disposable. Like all these things disposable. You want to get another one and throw it in there. Well, that is not cost effective in any way. We want to keep these things going. So maybe a little more insight from folks like yourself, kind of overseeing these things, make these engines live a little while. I think about rings. I think about rings all the time. Like once upon a time, or even right now, it's like it's a disposable item.
Yep.
Well, maybe there's something there that in the future these 11 or 12,000 horsepower nitro-burning engines can live a little longer and the parts aren't quite as consumed. And if that's possible, that would be only beneficial to everybody who does that.
Absolutely. I think the efficiencies of applying the horsepower, it seems to be plenty of horsepower. You look at it, it's making it go down the track, like you said.
Yeah. And you think 12,000 horsepower, that's enough, right? And the answer is no. It is not enough. There is never enough.
That's true.
Well, I think about the durability aspect of it. Like you're touching on. Jeremy Wagler last year or this past summer, they do the compound turbo diesel stuff, crazy stuff, right? And he's holding this one piston up. This guy Black Death is killed, and he's like, "Yeah, this was last year. This is this year. This one looks brand new." He's like, exact same piston, exact same rings, All we changed was the surface finish on the cylinders.
Wow.
They added more RVK to hold more oil, to seal and to lubricate, and all of a sudden it goes from this thing that can't live very long to this thing that can live
That's right.
a long time. So that's why we're honing the cylinders out there. We'll show you some before you leave.
Okay, good deal. Good deal.
That is super exciting. So what would you like to work on? You seem to have been able to touch so many cool things, but when you look at the motorsports world and as an engine builder, what interests you? What else would you like to do that maybe you haven't?
We've done quite a bit. We've delved into the midgets. We have a couple engines down at the Chili Bowl today.
Okay.
But I like all of them. I mean, the win is being able to get to the finish line. Our work for us on the naturally aspirated is done, non-top fuel is done on the dyno. It has to, when it makes it off there, we've done pretty much what we can do. We might tune at the track a little bit, but our job is to make it get to the finish line, and from there we hope to win. So road racing, I like all forms of racing. The fuel racing, though, I think it's working with people. That's really it in life, is that you get to work with really good people, and you succeed together. So,
makes a difference.
Exactly. Well, Dennis, great job with Lake's engine. Just the nuts and bolts, of course, but the emotional side of it is the best part. Great job. Thank you for that.
Thanks.
And thanks for joining us on Hidden Horsepower.
All right, thanks. Appreciate it.
All right, so from Lake to more Lake, except we're going to add a little John Callies in there. I'm going to talk some lifters, which is a very big part. We are coming down the stretch here at the Engine Performance Expo. What a day, what a day, what a day. My brain is swollen. I've learned so much today. They told us, don't start cars. We are not going to listen.